Hello, everyone, and welcome into another episode of Between the Ears. I'm Schuyler Callihan. That is Christopher Hall. We're going to take a slight pause from some football talk here today. It is the bye week, but it also gives us an opportunity to kind of look forward to the basketball season. So we're going to do that today. West Virginia opening up their regular season first game under Darian DeVries on Monday against Robert Morris. So we'll talk about the preview, or we'll preview this team, kind of what to expect in terms of the style of play, players to watch, stuff like that. We'll also get into our predictions and whether or not this could be a tournament team. I think after that scrimmage game, it kind of altered the expectations slightly. It was a Division two team, but it was still pretty good showing there for Darren DeVries and company. So, Chris, let's just go ahead and dive right into it. Again, this is, as you and I were talking before we started recording, this is really just a shot in the dark here because we really don't know what this team's going to look like. No one really does. When you bring this many new pieces together, you have no idea what it's going to look like. But we got a little glimpse of it, a little sneak peek against Charleston. From that game and from the things we've heard from Darren and the rest of that staff, what do you feel like will be some of the strengths and weaknesses of this team at 24-25?
I think what your the some of the strengths is going to be guard play and your forward, where your forwards and guards are. Obviously, weaknesses is going to be the bigs, just not having enough of them. But I think what you have is you have some length at the wing and at guard. So Javon Small has proven he's quick, he can find ways to score going towards the basket, and that's going to be beneficial to get the ball out to some of your shooters, someone like Tucker DeVries as well. So I think you have something there. This is a small lineup, but I think they're going to have the ability to spread the floor and be able to speed the game up and kind of render the other team bigs useless at times. But if the other if their opponents some of these you got the Kansases of the world just going to be able to kind of dictate how the flow of the game. That's where they can find themselves in some issues. But what I like about this group is they've really been preaching when things aren't going well, whether you're not shooting to do the small things, finding different ways to win, not just hitting the glass, whether it's finding a way to the free throw line, creating turnovers, just doing whatever it can to take. So they've really kind of emphasized taking different routes to win. So it's not just relying on outside shooting. So I think this is kind of how they've embraced everything and really having that trip to Italy to kind of solidify some of the small things. Um, I think as the season goes along, you'll be able to see those paths kind of start opening up for this group, and the having that length on the wing and having some length at guard can uh can alter the into the inside paint. So I think they have something there, but it's really denying the ball inside against some of these teams. It's really going to be a challenge for them.
Yeah, I think defensively, I was surprised just because of, like you said, they're kind of shorthanded underneath. They don't really have a true big, but there's ways to combat that. There's ways to make up for that, and their length certainly helps. But you have guys engaged on that end of the floor. I mean, will that carry over to Big 12 play? Remains to be seen, but I think effort is usually a pretty fluent thing. Like you don't really have to worry about that with this team because it's going to be there. Now, are they going to get beat just because of the sheer size advantage or disadvantage that they have? Yeah, but they're going to be able to get after some people and get up into some people's grill. And I think when you have guys like Javon Small, who I think is an underrated defensive player. You have Tucker DeVries, who I think is obviously known for his offense, but he's known to stick his nose in there as well on defense. And really, the number one key to this, I think, is Sincere Harris. I mean, he is. If there was ever a Bob Huggins player on this roster, is Sincere Harris not that guy? Like he just screams Bob Huggins type of player, point guard, whatever. But they're going to be able to play defense at a pretty high level. And if they can just rebound it well enough, then they're going to have a chance to be competitive in the Big 12. It's going to be a collective effort. There's not going to be one guy, I don't think, on this roster. Maybe Amani Hansberry or Eduardo Andre come back at the end of the year and point to this episode and say you were stupid. But I don't think there's going to be somebody that averages double digit rebounds on this team. So you're going to have several guys get 5, 6, 7 rebounds a night to kind of make up for that lack of domination by one guy. But offensively, I think it's going to be a really fun product to watch. It's going to be a different style than what we're used to seeing under Huggins. It was, bring the ball up the floor, get into some sort of a half court offense that just was a bunch of screens and, dump it down to the big and see what happens. But this is more of a fluent, modern offense, I think, that we're going to see with Darian DeVries. A lot of dribble handoffs, a lot of attacking the paint, a lot of kicking, penetration and kicking out to the 3 point line. There's going to be a lot of 3 point shots go up, but I think that's by design too. You have a lot of guards, you have a lot of guys that can handle it. They're going to play with an up tempo speed, and it's going to be a fun version offensively, I think, from what we're accustomed to seeing under Bob Huggins.
Yeah, and you have different guys bringing the ball up the floor. Tucker was bringing the ball up the floor in that exhibition game, so it gives opposing defenses something to look at. And yeah, I mean, you've got guys. There's plenty of potential on here. Amani Hansberry obviously can stretch the floor as a four. So yeah, I think offensively, schematically, they have pieces there that they can draw out the front court of whoever they're playing and be able to create space for Tucker inside or whoever to get in the paint and get some mismatches. So yeah, I think offensively they're fine. I think really with the rebounding, they get it, but they're missing that like a little bit of aggressiveness. Like they're boxing out, but everyone's kind of got to go attack the ball. So they caught flat-footed a few times, and I think that's something that's very correctable. At the same time, you don't want them fighting their own teammate. They don't want to knock it off.
Yeah.
We've seen that several times around college basketball where they knock it away from their own player, being over aggressive. But you got to find that balance. So I think that's something that this group has really bought in, and I think that's something with this group. Like over the last 5 years, really, 4 or 5 years, whatever the transfer portal really started to become a thing. You started seeing some of the stars that were in the transfer portal coming to West Virginia, but it wasn't really a collective group. Yeah, they said all the right things, and yeah, they were, the effort was there. Never really didn't believe the effort, but it's different when there's a whole level of buy-in. And there's really not that, Tucker, yes, he's a star. He can very much well play himself into a first round draft pick, especially playing in the Big 12, obviously, if he has a success, it translates into the Big 12. But there doesn't seem to be a lot of ego on this team. And it really seems right now that it's a collective effort to just find ways to win. I think that's something that's really changed. So I think you have a group that's eager to prove, everybody. There's not a lot of expectation with this group, obviously, with everybody coming in, and it's a first year head coach. I think this team's eager to prove that they do belong in a conversation in a Big 12, championship, regular season championship, to try to get in the top of the standings. So I think it really is a group that's prepared to take on the challenges. And you really look at the non-conference schedule too, like they're going to be battle tested early. So they have a
Yeah.
lot of opportunity to prove themselves early. And we know what Pitt did to West Virginia last year in Morgantown. So it's a whole new group. There's really not redemption for this group outside of Ofri, but
Hopefully he's holding that grudge.
he's holding a grudge for the group. But I mean, it doesn't matter. Whoever they line up, these guys are going to be ready to play. I think you have a more even killed team this season. And I think they're more this whole group is going to get to come together game one, right? Like we had to deal with the Raekwon battle issue all the way up until
Yeah.
December. Like
That
they
was
had to they
crucial.
had to cancel their Spain trip. Like there was just so much that was surrounding the program with an interim head coach, and Josh did everything that he possibly could to keep it all together. But there's more stability. There's more guys there that are there to play for Coach DeVries. So it's it just seems like it's a better situation. It's just how does it all come together on the floor, which looked really. And I know I think we talked about it right after the game. It was like there was never any doubt in this game. Like there was never really any struggle in this game. And exhibitions of the past, granted, maybe there's some better teams. It was like, okay, guys, get it together now. Like you shouldn't be only up 4 points at this point
Yeah.
during the game. They just took control early, and it was good to see some of the success in the secret scrimmage with the highlight that they had against Wake Forest. That was a 21-14 Wake Forest team last year. So that's very promising. So again, it's just there's a lot of things happening early that I think exceeded, I think, both of our expectations at this point. That the way they've played and something like rebounding, okay, kind of expect it, but it still, I think, was a little bit better than we both kind of saw it going in. So a lot of promise, looking good early as far as what kind of expectations we had going into it. And again, there's some pieces here, and there's some young guys that are hungry that came from, obviously came from other schools that are wanting to play and prove that they do belong at this level. So I think it's going to be a lot more exciting this year than people expect.
There's two things I noticed with this whole situation compared to last year. I mean, first of all, like you said with the Raekwon battle thing, I don't think they were able to establish any sort of identity offensively or defensively last year because there were so many moving pieces. And you had the situation with the Cook in the scrimmage that kind of probably shook, some people up for a few days. That was a jarring situation. And
Yeah,
then
and
you
he
had,
obviously missed a bunch of time as
yeah.
well.
And you had other guys that got hurt. You had Raekwon that was out. Noah Farrakhan didn't play for a good portion of the season too. And then you bring those guys in, and it's like you try to hit the reset button and try and figure out who are you now with this team. So it was really a
And then
tale of
Jesse
two.
Edwards got hurt right when he
Yeah,
comes
right
back.
as
It was
soon as
just
everyone
one
comes
thing
back.
after another after another.
Yeah, and you just never had that opportunity, that runway to really figure out who you are. And again, that's kind of why we don't really put the blame on Josh Schuyler, and I don't think anybody does. It was just one of those seasons where everything that could go wrong went wrong. And this year's team, you have that international trip to have some games under your belt with. You come into to camp knowing kind of how certain guys play. But I think too, last year was also jarring in the fact that, all those guys that came here, Jesse Edwards, Kirk Kriisa, Raekwon Battle, they came here expecting to play for one coach in Bob Huggins. And then that whole situation materialized. You had that whole situation go down where Josh Schuyler comes in, he's the interim, and they were all guys expecting to make a deep run. They were also guys that came from previous roles where they were stars at their previous places and had been playing competitive basketball, whether that was Jesse at Syracuse, Kerr at Arizona, Raekwon was the guy at his stop there as well. So you had guys that were already kind of determined, to make a run. Here you have Oklahoma State's Javon Small, who has proven to be a good quality Big 12 player, but he didn't get to really showcase that on the national stage being at Oklahoma State. Tucker DeVries, he made it to the tournament, but he was at Drake. He didn't get that national spotlight until he got to March Madness. For him, it's a determination thing now that, hey, I can play with the best players in the country in what is deemed to be the best conference in America. And you can say the same thing, with like Amani Hansberry, so Sincere Harris, two guys that were at Illinois, a big time program, but were really kind of buried on the depth chart there. They're hungry, they're determined to go and prove that they are worthy of being at this level. Jaden Stone, he was one of the best scorers in all of college basketball last year. He won what one game, one game with Detroit Mercy last year. So he's eager and determined too to kind of be out there and prove that he's worthy of being here. So I think you kind of get this collection of guys that I wouldn't say are a collection of misfits, but it's a collection of guys that are eager to go out there and prove that they are able to play at this level. And you saw that early on, even in the scrimmage. And I think you're going to see that moving forward. This is going to be a team, even though they don't have the size, it's going to be all about grit, toughness, and the will to win. And I think it sometimes last year you just didn't see that.
Yeah, and it's going to have to be unselfishness on the offensive side of the floor as well. And then you add in Jonathan Powell, who played well.
Oh, does he look like
Yeah,
a bucket or
so
not?
there is definitely a
Golly.
lot of pieces, and I mean everyone should be excited to watch Tucker play, considering he's an NBA prospect, and just what kind of how able able to find ways to score. So yeah, challenges are coming up quick, very very quick. The Pitt game's obviously going to be, it's a rivalry game. There's already bad blood with football. Basketball has its history as well, and then obviously getting losing at home. Again, that's more of a fan thing. But fans will definitely rally around this team early because Pitt has basketball under capable is on the rise. They're getting better players, and they're finding ways to win. So, what they made the tournament the last 2 years, I believe. So they are that'll be a tough challenge right off the bat inside the Peterson Vincent. Usually everything kind of takes hold in football's kind of takes, with the Steelers, everything. Pitt hasn't really got the crowd into basketball, but after the last 2 years and winning at West Virginia last year, that's going to be a tough venue to play. So yeah, they're going to be tested early and often, and you hope with this group, obviously it's going to come down to Darren to keep this ship right throughout the season, especially if they fall early in some of these bigger games, to keep moving forward. Because yeah, you mentioned it. Like there's a lot of guys that came from different places that came here not only to prove themselves but to win.
Yeah.
So if things don't go their way early, it's going to 100% it's going to be mentally at that point. How focused are you? How locked in are they at that after suffering some few early losses, especially when you go to that Thanksgiving week tournament, that's just chock full of ranked teams right now. Where they're going to be at, because from my point of view, I don't see this team getting blown out as far as like being down 20 at halftime and losing by 20
They're
something
going to be
points.
competitive. Yeah.
So how they lose may have something to do with it, but they may end up losing by 20 where it just gets out of hand last 5, 4 minutes. We've seen that snowball happen everywhere. It happens at times, especially if this group early, or maybe they're just a little bit off offensively, just from trying to build chemistry. But again, you could kind of tell in that exhibition game that they've run a lot of the same plays together over and over and over. There's so much cohesiveness. There's passing with a purpose, and there's cutting to the basket with a purpose, driving to the basket with a purpose, not just driving and improvising. There's there was release points, there was safety valves. Like there's just something kind of clicking there offensively this early. To me, is an extreme bright spot heading to the season, and really just can't look. Robert Morris isn't. They should dispatch them pretty easily. Um, but it's definitely going to be a challenge game one. That's when it counts. Everything you get a little bit more uptick, and everything on Monday night in Morgantown. So it's going to me. It's definitely an excite. It's far more exciting of a season where you kind of looked at the basketball and you're like, well, it is what it is. It's year one. Well, now it's like, well, they kind of got some pieces here. If you look at the schedule, 17, 18 wins more than likely get you in the NCAA tournament, being in the Big 12. We saw it a couple years ago. Like it doesn't take a 20 plus wins to get them in, so they have a chance to play their way in the tournament. And uh, kind of that it resets again when you get in the tournament, and all of a sudden, the team gets hot. You can make it on a little run.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Like you said, right out of the chute there, you got some tough opponents. You do have some, gimmies on the schedule, but there's not very many of them. You got Gonzaga in that thing as well, in the Bahamas, or is it the Bahamas Battle for Atlantis, whatever it is. Um, can't think off the top of my head, but you've got some really quality competition there, non-conference play, which will at least help you be ready for what's going to come in Big 12 play. But players to watch. So we've already kind of highlighted Tucker DeVries, Javon Small. We've kind of already talked about those guys. There's not really much more else to add about them. But maybe some guys that not a whole lot of people are paying much attention to now, but that you feel like will make a bit of a mark on this year's team.
I'm starting off with Toby Akani.
Yeah,
I like the
I
way he
love me some
plays.
McConney.
Yes, 6'8" guard. Got that again. It's got that length. Someone that can probably get. Uh, don't want to say rely on him in the paint, but probably going to be. Yeah, I think you mentioned it, like a Gabe Ace Osaboyan esque type player where he's just going to kind of do it all, give you all the effort, dive on the floor. Just kind of really like the way he plays. I think you're going to get a lot of the little things from him, and I think he can be someone that's I want to say immediately fan favorite, but he's definitely going to grow on people quickly. Just kind of with the effort and the way that he played. We're going to list off a bunch, or do you want you want to go one at a time here?
Just go for it. List them all.
I'll give since we talked about Powell, I'm going to go Monty Hansberry. Obviously, we talked about him, but I think that's someone. He's a 6'8" forward, 240. Can bring out that other forward to kind of give some more space in the paint. So again, another stretch forward. I think he's going to have some big games because I think he's going to be able to take advantage of the other teams that don't have that in their arsenal and maybe not used to seeing it as much. So I think that's another one right there that kind of can be that X factor in games. And you mentioned Jane Stone. There's Detroit Mercy. Like there's another kid that's just ready and fired up to prove it. Came off the bench, I believe, in the exhibition. So I think he can make a case early that he's one of the better six men in the Big 12. I don't know if he's six man of the year material, but hey, he led the college basketball in scoring last year. So I think that's someone you can kind of go back, well, who uplifted some of the Mountaineer teams in the past with their scoring. I think that's somebody that can come off the bench if they're struggling, can immediately give them a boost and build some momentum. So I think those are three players outside of the ones that we've kind of mentioned. And I know we talked about. I guess I'll definitely show some love to Eduardo Andre. He's going to be lonely down there. Poor guy's probably going to take some heat a lot. But I think it's a guy that's going to battle, and he's going to continue to get stronger as the season goes along. He's got a good base under him, underneath. Be interesting to see how he can hang with some of the bigs in the Big 12. But I think it's a guy that's going to be underappreciated a lot during the season because they're so short-handed in the front court that he's probably going to end up not so much personally, but having to hear how they're undersized and everything is kind of directed toward him. But I think that's a guy, another one that's gritty, that's going to find ways to make plays and do things on the defensive end that's really going to help them.
Yeah, I'm all over Toby Akani in that prediction there. He may be one of the best defenders in the Big 12. Probably going to be an all Big 12 defensive player when it's all said and done this year. I like as I mentioned earlier, Sincere Harris. I think he could be another guy that's on that all Big 12 defense team. May not be first team, but second or third team for sure. Jonathan Powell, I love. I mean, he is got a really sweet shot. I mean, it's as true as it gets. It's consistent, and he shoots it with confidence, conviction. He's going to be a star. I just don't know when it's going to happen for him. Is it going to be this year? Highly unlikely, but I think he can find his way to be a solid contributor this year, and then maybe take that step next year with Tucker departing and some other guys leaving due to graduation. But he is one of the building blocks, I think, for this team moving forward. And I think Monty Hansberry is, and I know I'm kind of sticking with some more known guys here, but it's been a while since West Virginia's had a guy that's been able to step out and knock down some shots that can play the four, in this case, the five. And Amani's going to be able to do that. He's a really legitimate. I think he's going to turn himself into a legitimate NBA prospect. Is he going to be a first round pick when he leaves? I don't know. He may be a second rounder. He may be a guy that just plays in the G League, but he's definitely somebody that's going to be on NBA scouts' radars with his versatility. So let's go ahead and shift in here to our record prediction portion of the episode here. And 31 games. We're not going to go through pick every single one like we do in football because God Almighty, we'd be here for 7 days doing that. But just giving a an overall prediction here, I'm going to say probably around that 16 and 15 or 17-14 kind of range. I'll go 16 and 15. Year one, it's a lot to ask. Even though there's a lot of talent on this team, it's just I don't know if you have enough depth, enough reliable depth going into this Big 12 conference. It's going to be a bit of an uphill climb. Big 12's deeper, it's better, it's stronger. It's going to get tougher every single year now that you added in the new schools as well. So I'm going to go 16 and 15. I think there's positive signs. It's going to be a year, like you said, it's not going to be a 16 and 15 where you don't feel good about the direction of the program. I think there's going to be some wins in there that maybe you don't expect. Is it going to be going to Fog Allen Fieldhouse and getting a win? I don't know, but you're
It
going to
would
get
be
a couple
funny
of
if
ranked
that
wins.
happened. It would be
Yeah,
funny in year one
it
if
would
there it's
be.
the one that won at Kansas.
It would be, but I do think that you'll see them get a ranked win or two, and they'll show some signs of progress under Darren. I think this is the right hire. This will be a good foundation year for them.
Yeah, I think I'm around the 17, 18 mark. You
A
look
little
at the
bit more
schedule.
optimistic.
If you look at the schedule and you just don't, if they don't win a ranked game, that's 17 wins. So they're, I mean, that doesn't mean that TCU isn't good. It doesn't
Yeah,
mean that some of these guys aren't good. BYU, Utah struggled as late, but you played TCU twice. You got to play down there. So yeah, if you take maybe a ranked home win, of course, some of these ranked games at home are brutal because you got Houston and Iowa State on that list. If you can knock off one of those teams, and again, a guy like Tucker, that you expect to have 20-point outputs against some of the better teams in the country, then yeah, it could happen. So, and if you win 17, even without winning a ranked opponent, you're more likely still going to make the dance. So I have
Yeah,
this team um, playing above expectations. I probably came in around 16 wins prior to seeing them exhibition, so it's not that much of a jump, really, when you think about it. But yeah, there's definitely winnable games on there that they could. That you just look at them on paper and what you've seen so far. That yeah, they can definitely get some. They can definitely pull out above 500 record. But I do believe that they may have something in this kind of small ball that they're going to play. Yes, teams are going to be able to slow down on them and kind of pound the paint, and they're going to get in foul trouble, and ultimately probably end up losing those games. But there's a lot of winnable games out there. So the expectation still probably that maybe it's still a little too high. I would hover around the 15, 16 win mark because, again, we don't know injuries. We don't know how this
right.
team's going to react early in the season when they play Gonzaga. And there's another program they've really struggled against, and they're 16, the sixth team in the country. But if they can pretty much shock at the college basketball world right off the bat with that, yeah, I mean,
They'll be everyone's
expectations would be
darling.
through the roof. Yeah, right. Everything would be through the roof. Also, and they're going to go into Big 12 play a month later. But it's going to be a grind. But I think what it's just small that's been in kind of through a grind like this, and he's coming from another Big 12 school, so they're going to be tested mentally, physically, all season long. A little bit of help there early, kind of in December there with a weaker schedule. Kind of see what Georgetown's going to be like with Ed Cooley. Don't know if they're going to be able to turn that around, but I think your real first test, second game of the season, gets UMass, Frank Martin team.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to come try to punch you right in the face in Morgantown. So we'll kind of see what they're made of from a mental standpoint and a physicality standpoint in game two, because that's five. It's they play Monday, play UMass Friday, and we know how Frank Martin teams play. So I think that's a test game too. And then again, you're going up to Pitt game three. So those are three tests in the or two tests in the first three games. So yeah,
Yeah.
they don't have a ranking on their name, but we know that it's been good the last couple of years, and the Frank Martin team's always tough. So we'll find out. We're gonna find out early what this team's made of.
So to wrap up really quickly here, in NCAA tournament or not, obviously for me, 16 and 15, I mean, I guess you could still get there depending on who the 16 wins are. If you have a handful of ranked
And
wins,
you got to
then
do Big 12 tournament. If they go win three games in the
yeah,
Big 12 tournament
then
after
they're
that, they're
probably
in.
in. Then
Yep.
they're so you know, I guess it's not as cut and dry at 16, 15, but I'm going to lean towards no. I think they get an NIT appearance, which again, year one under this regime, I think is still very okay. I don't think it's time to panic or anything like that. This is just a starting, point of this new regime. So I don't think that, and if you get to the NCAA tournament, I think that's just icing on the cake. I think for year one. So year two moving forward, that needs to start being the expectation is to get to the big dance. But year one, you'd like to get there, but it doesn't have to happen. So I'm going to say no.
I'm gonna say yes as a 10 or
Ooh.
11 seed. Because again,
For,
if they
for
get that
last four in,
17th,
last four in.
18th, yeah, 17th, 18th win, yeah, absolutely. So I have them around 17, 18 wins. So yeah, I think they get in with that schedule. Like you said, I think they can knock off a ranked opponent because some of these teams that aren't ranked now may get in eventually. So
Yeah.
there's going to be more opportunities to get ranked wins. They're not going to be just top five, top 10 opponents on the
That's the
schedule.
beauty of the Big
Um,
12. You're going to
yeah,
have your
so
opportunities.
teams are going to beat each other. They're going to get ranked. I suspect probably TCU may get in there at some point. So then they play them twice. So there's definitely room for. There's definitely going to be plenty of opportunities to get some ranked wins. I think they'll get some. We'll have to see. I think the biggest thing for this team is not lose a game that you're expected to win. You can take care of home. I don't know if you're going to knock off Iowa State at home, but the games that you're supposed to win at home, and the bad teams on the road, if you win those games, then yeah, I think you'll be all right, and I think they'll be able to get in. Big 12, just because Huggins isn't here doesn't mean West Virginia doesn't have that cachet in their back pocket of a tournament team. And I think they do end up getting the benefit of the doubt, whereas some programs may not. Huggins did kind of sway that a lot, I believe. But I think with this program, and it is in the consideration, TV rankings and fan travel. That's still a thing
Yeah.
that the fans may push them over the top because if West Virginia does better and they get in a tournament, fans are going to travel.
I mean, just
Absolutely.
look at last year. They were showing up to the Coliseum when the team was bad and the weather was
Right.
like
Absolutely.
so.
Absolutely. So yeah, they'll have the fan support, and I think it's going to be a fun year, a lot better than what we expected. And yeah, I think they do shock some teams, and wouldn't be surprised if they did beat a top 10 team this year. Because again, you've got some pieces, and Tucker, I believe, is a legit player, and I think he can carry this team.
So there you have it, our 2024-25 West Virginia basketball preview and record prediction. We'll have the article version of our record prediction coming out on Saturday. If this is past Saturday and you're not watching, go and go over to the website and check it out. And that's going to do it for us here today and this week on Between the Ears. We will be back to our normal schedule starting next Tuesday. Obviously, there's no game to recap on Sunday morning, so no morning after. We'll have Tuesday, Wednesday, and then obviously the walkthrough game day show as West Virginia, as Chris and Eugene will be previewing West Virginia at Cincinnati, a big time matchup coming out of the break for the Mountaineers. So that's going to do it for us here today on Between Years. That's Christopher Hall. I'm Schuyler Callihan. Make sure you hit that subscribe button here on our YouTube page at West Virginia on SI and give us a follow on X at SI_WVU. Take care and have a great week.